Are you ready to save our kids? If children are the living messages that we send to a time that we will not see, Save Our Kids is an opportunity for you to be introduced to a few school and student helpers that will support each child's individual journey. If there is a space or a place to improve the lives of our children, we know a few families and business owners who have made it their business to answer the call for help and provide a solution to those quietly discussed challenges that impact our children and eventually us all. We could not just choose one kiddo to save, so we are asking for your help to reach more. Join Keeping Your Kids Safe as we identify some of the problems and share a few solutions that have been created just for you. Yes, yes, yes. Hello, hello.
Hello.
How are
Happy
you?
Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday. Hi, Miranda. How are you?
I'm well. How are you, Tabitha? Nice to meet you,
Wow.
Kristen.
Yes, nice to
Yes.
meet you.
Yes, awesome. I'm excited. Yes, today's conversation is going to be one impactful one, I'm pretty sure. But I think for the first time, like when I was first doing the promos and putting them up or putting all the stuff together, I'm putting all these things together, but sometimes I just don't get, sometimes I forget. I forget what it sounds like or how it is. You know what I mean? So it's
Absolutely.
all
I
good.
do.
So it's all great. It's on. Yeah, they're everybody's trying to get on the on the YouTube finally, I think just sent out a message that says, "Hey, we're on." All right. So, yay. So today's conversation I think is going to be a great one. We're going to be talking about advocacy. We want to make sure that we give as much information as possible, and then also be able to help Kristen and Christine, both of who have created this book that's going to help bridge the gap between home and school. So, as you know, just like normal, I'll go ahead and allow you ladies to go ahead and let everybody know who you are, what you do, just a little bit about you before we jump in. Okay. So,
Okay,
thank you so
awesome.
much. So, Miranda, let's go first. Yes.
Okay, great. I'm Miranda Kennedy, and I have a child who is a person with an intellectual disability. Her name is McCoy. And because of McCoy's intellectual disability, she has an IEP. So I get to sit at the IEP table. And in sitting at this table, I discovered that there's like poor communication that's taking place among the team and the parents. And as a parent, I felt outside of the team and not kind of like an honorary member of the IEP team and not an actual, didn't like my seat wasn't legitimate. And so I worked on an app. And this app was to improve the communication between the parent and the IEP team. I became a substitute teacher. So I was there talking to SPED and gen ed teachers, as well as this amazing principal, as I worked on features and things like that to improve the communication process. And then once I got in the school, I realized that there's poor communication between like SPED and gen ed. There was a lack of communication between the teachers inside the building. And I thought the problem was just being on the outside. But then too, the app still solves that problem as well as it relates to improving communication. So once I got the app all done, I handed my phone to the principal, who was fully aware that I was working on this project, that he knew my intention. However, I was also there to help, not only learn what the needs were, but also there to just be a help. And so I handed him my cell phone with the app open, and he easily maneuvered around it. And he thought it served a purpose, and that, but there was just this disconnect between the central offices, like the headquarters, and the application of the app. Because as you know, there's a lot of safety measures. There's a lot of additional pieces that come into play. And that's how I met Tabitha. I reached out to her and having this conversation about the tech piece and the need for a CTO. And so that's where I am in that process, still improving the features and still looking for a CTO for this product. And we are now in my daughter McCoy is in high school now, and the problems, or should I say the challenges, they continue. And I'm, again, being a substitute teacher there, like trying to connect. And I just started this group this group email with everybody on the team. Nobody's complained so far, but when I sent a mass email to everyone, just keeping the lines of communication going on, because she went through this period where she was having accidents at school, and she, of all of my kiddos, she wasn't really the one to have accidents. When initially potty training, like she caught on to it right away, but then she started having accidents, and just the stress, I think, of high school and wanting to fit in and participate in this activity and that activity, but realizing that she's somehow different. And I also had a problem with McCoy being really friendly to boys.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, just being overly friendly to boys. And so I had a couple of teachers reach out to me about that. And we will probably touch on that as we continue with the conversation. But so yes, it's a very interesting topic for me, and child safety. And I'm super excited to be here and grateful for the invitation. Thanks again, Tabitha.
No problem. So we're still going to work on that CTO thing for you.
Okay.
And then the other thing is that a couple of things you actually mentioned. You embody a lot of the reason why I started the Save Our Kids, because you are absolutely correct in your experience. There is definitely a disconnect between the central office and where the work is really being done. And for that reason, our children are caught in the middle where their needs are not being completely met. So that's something we want to discuss here today as well. And then the other thing I want to make sure that we touch on is that I think that people believe, for whatever reason, that intellectual disability means that the body still doesn't do what it's supposed to do, right? Puberty will still happen regardless.
Yes.
So when the kids are like, when the body is making changes and things like that, and the body's like, ooh, he's cute. Ooh, she's cute. Oh, they want to touch me. Okay. Because they don't, now their intellectual disability will say they don't recognize that you just don't lay down with everyone, right? But they're like, oh, you want to touch me? No problem, right? Yeah. And I think that some of those things we'll probably need to talk about too today. So I do.
Great idea.
Yes. Yeah. Look, right on time. That's
right on time.
Together. All right. So we're going to go ahead and let Kristen share a little bit about her so we know more about her.
Sure. My name is Kristen Lynn Norai, and I am fortunate to have met Tabitha over a year ago. We were on a show together, and I am working as an inclusion IEP advocate and 504 advocate for students, in addition to working as a national professional development specialist and coach for teachers. I spent more than 23 years in the public school system and felt like I was spinning my wheels, not able to change things. Like you were saying, Miranda, I can relate so much of the IEP team not having the communication that needed to happen. And a lot of it came down to, we didn't have the time, the money, or the resources to do what we needed to do, bottom line. And I got tired of that being the reasoning and the norm. So I made the decision to step away from public education 2 years ago to try and fix things from the outside. And just so happened that in that process, another colleague of Tabitha and I's, Christine Lynn Jones, not to confuse you with my name, I'm Kristen Lynn and she's Christine Lynn. We co-authored a book together that turned out to turned into an interactive workbook for parents on how to advocate for their students, both academically and behavior, social, emotionally, from the standpoint of what to do at home to support their child, but what to do if it's not working, how to talk to the school, what you need to support, you take into school to show as evidence, how to collect that evidence, all of those different components. And after we wrote the book, somebody said, you guys really wrote a course. This is bigger than just a book. So now we are creating parenting classes to go with the book, as well as classes for teachers and coaches on how to work with parents better. So all of us are, in that same boat, trying to really bridge that gap. Our goal, Christine and I's goal, is to kick off a movement in terms of changing that. And it's called Bridging the Educational Gap. And we are going to be doing an anthology series where we have a collection of teachers that are coming together that have left public education to try and help fix education. And we're all going to be writing about our perspective of why we left and how it came about that we, ended up on the outside working on education. So
I love that. I love that you are working from the outside in, and I'm working from the inside.
I do love it. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Love this.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
This is amazing. So look, this is why we do this. And thank you, Phil, because Phil is a big supporter of us. So we want to make sure that we have a special thanks to Helpopedia. Please make sure to go and reach out to them. Scan that QR code, friends, and go ahead and follow that page. That's a LinkedIn page. Follow them. They will be very helpful and instrumental to you and your children. But you are right there with it, man. I'm so excited. Oh, so here's my plug for today. Let's see let me see if I do that. Can you please subscribe, like and subscribe to the YouTube channel? Somebody called me and says, you need to start doing that. And I was like, okay, can you please look, let me see right now. Can you please subscribe to that? I don't know. Anyway,
I've already subscribed.
My name is Tabitha Barron. I am the founder of Keeping Your Kids Safe. We have these conversations every week because at the end of the day, as Miranda says, there is a disconnect between where your child is being taught and who is managing and directing everything in place, right? So the central office is what they call it, administrative buildings and things like that. And then where the students are being taught, there's definitely a disconnect and not all of our needs are being met. So I created an app I created a platform, because an entire platform that helps them manage the dismissal path for all 4 dismissal channels: walkers and bikers, car riders, childcare bus riders, and yellow bus riders. Because let's be clear, when your school loses your child and you don't know yet, they will call 22 childcare centers in your area to find the child before you figure out that your child is missing. So this app will prevent that from happening. You will get notified before the mistake is finalized, allowing you to participate in the dismissal process and making sure that your child actually makes it to their next destination. So there's a couple of things I'm going to say here. One, I was kind of on the fence of whether or not I was going to say it, but keep with the brand. Let's do it. Let me say that 11-year-old child that was murdered last week, when they found her, took them 6 days to find her. One of the things that kept being said was, had the school notified the parents ahead of time that that child never made it to school, that child had an opportunity to be found before she was murdered. Our app will help you with that. It's not the school's responsibility, people will say. It's not the home responsibility, people will say. Whose responsibility is? It's not a gray area. When you hand your child over to someone to care for them, the expectation is that they are returned back in the same way you receive them, or better, not worse and not never. So it is somebody's responsibility, because we have a co-parenting relationship. And so I'm going to share it again. Parent 1 is home. Parent one says all of the value systems that you want them to have and all those things that you do. You are teacher number one. Parent number two is school. School is going to educate them, keep them while you're working, and do some of the things that you're not able to do, for 8 hours a day. At the end of that, you all have a bonus parent, right? Which is the community. The community will keep your children on the rails. They will keep them out of trouble. If your community sees your child getting ready to go in and steal something, they're gonna step in and help them not to do that. If your child is almost going to get hit by a car, you think that the neighbor's going to sit there and watch your child get hit by the car and just watch and see and wait how long it's going to take. They're not going to do that. They're going to go and they're going to alert that child or snatch them out of harm's way. That's the benefit of co-parenting with both parent one, parent two, and the bonus. That's what I advocate. That's what I believe will bring peace and harmony with our children. So that's where I want to start. So as always, I always like to give you the stats because you can't fix anything unless we know where we're working from. One, there are, what did I say? How many millions of children? 46 million children. Nope, that's the one we're going down to. So there's 49 million children that go to school every single school year. 7.3 million of them are actually in public schools, actually are labeled as special needs. Okay. So between 1976 and now, it has been a drastic increase. It's about doubled. So in 1976, there were only 3.6 million children with disabilities, right? We are now sitting at 7.3. I'm going to venture and say there's something we're doing that's actually, promoting that. So we want to be careful. The other thing I want to share with you is that there are many, many disabilities. So everybody's like, well, let's see. What kind of disabilities are there? Well, let me tell you what they are, because when you start to look at them, you start to understand some of us fit. That's where the 504 comes into place. That's where, these other designators that they give. So we're talking autism, deaf and blindness, deafness, emotional disturbance, hearing impairment, intellectual disability, multiple disabilities, orthopedic impairment, other health impairments, specific learning disability, speech and language impairments, traumatic brain injury, and also visual impairment, including blindness. And they break them down for a reason. Physical development, cognitive development, communication development, social and emotional development, or adaptive development. And so these are just some of the ones that are here. And so there are actually 13 different categories. And that's why they break them down. And this is the reason why I wanted to make sure that I brought Kristen back, because it was important for Kristen to be able to share with us or help us understand what we do not understand as parents. I can tell you what I've done, and I've been an advocate for greater than 20 years for my own child and then for other people who have it. So Kristen, can you please share with us a little bit more information about what IDEA, you'll hear me use the acronym instead, right?
Yeah.
IDEA, Individuals with Disability Education Act, that was enacted in 1975 because those children with intellectual disabilities deserve the right to be educated. And the reason why they had to do that is because other people did not feel the same. So now we have that. So go ahead, Kristen, take it away.
Sure. Yes, you named the 13 categories for areas of disability within the federal regulations of IDEA laws. And then each state has different ways they interpret those things as well. So one of the things that came very frustrating to me was I got trained to be an educator, a special educator in Ohio. And then I moved back to Maryland where I grew up. And I learned very quickly that the qualifications varied from state to state. So what would have qualified a student in Ohio under the ID identification for ID mild, in Maryland, that child would not have qualified because there's a 10-point discrepancy in what the IQ was to qualify a student. And so that to me was like, wait, you mean if this child moves just 2 states over, they qualify and get an IEP, but because they live here, they can't have one? And I basically was told, yep, that's the way it is. Mm-hmm. And having worked now in 4 different states, every state is a little bit different. Every state interprets timelines a little differently. in terms of qualifications. But these main 13 areas are those main areas that they go back to. And then the biggest thing is, okay, within those areas, is there an educational impact? So you can have a disability and not have an educational impact. So for example, I might have a speech and language disability that I'm working through and it's still impacting me, and I might just need accommodations, but perhaps it doesn't require me to need a full IEP. So that's where a 504 plan might come into play for some of those medical disabilities. 504s are starting to incorporate and do a better job state or federal wise at the state level, interpreting mental health as part of medical disabilities now, which is critical. When I was a special ed or a 504 compliance officer, the number of students we had that needed support because of mental illness was just rapidly increasing. And Tabitha, you mentioned 1976 and it being only 3.6 million back then. I think that it's twofold. I think we're at the 7.3 now for two reasons. One, more kids are being diagnosed because we know more, but more kids are also being diagnosed because there are more environmental factors that are causing issues with children that create these disabilities and having higher impact. So
yeah, that was one of the things
that kind of covers. I'm sorry, go ahead.
That was one of the things that Ed Week actually brought out, is that the classroom is actually participating and contributing to the disability of the child. Absolutely. And it has a lot to do with the fact that what they're asking. So the kids need to know more, but there's things that they're not, there's the gap is showing up more and more in the classroom. Yes. Because you're placing, what did they say? Inflexible curriculums, overemphasis on academics, leave students' needs unmet. So like we talked about a couple of weeks ago, how there was the program that they're putting into Houston ISD, it puts the kids on that rhythm. It forces them to get that rhythm, and some of the kids can't take it. Hence, now you'll start to see more of those students actually being separated, sorted out, and placed in an intellectual disability category because they're not able to keep up, because you're not managing how the child learns, you are managing how you are teaching.
Right. And then the social drivers, those social drivers outside of the classroom, single parent with multiple jobs, maybe this disconnect from your neighbor. Like, who knows your neighbor's name? That type of disconnect as well. Food insecurity, the lack of nutrition in the area, the lack of public transportation. Like, there's so many social drivers as well that are lending to the development issues that our kiddos are facing.
And then think about too, when you talk about the fact that when you talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the bottom line is that when you look at it as an adult, if we do not feel safe, if we do not feel taken care of, and if we don't have shelter and food to eat, we have a really hard time. I've always said, for me, if your foundation is not right, if you have crap foundation at home, you're likely to have a really not great, outside life, right? So when your family life is falling apart at home, mom either is not available because she's working 2 and 3 jobs, or dad is maybe in jail or has to take a job elsewhere, that impacts the child. And everybody who's walking around saying, no, that how could they be? Let me explain something. My little ones used to come to me and they would worry. They would tell me they would worry about, I'm worried about the gas bill. What? The gas bill? You're 7. What's happening? Right? I'm worried about the food in the refrigerator, Mom. I'm worried about, and I was like, please, friend, this is what I want you to do. For you, 7-year-old little body, I'm going to need you to, your job, the only job you have is to learn how to be 7. I need you to exercise your right and your imagination and work out 7. Let me work out the age I'm at, right? Let me worry about the bills and the house and the food. Your job is to figure out what it is to be 7. And then
Yes.
every year I remind them, what is your job? Because we're so busy trying to they were so busy trying to get in a different lane that didn't belong to them, that it was causing them stress, and they were stunting themselves developmentally, and I was contributing to that as long as I allowed that to continue to happen.
Sure.
So what I'm saying is that I think it's very important that you make sure that if you as an adult are concerned about where am I going to lay my head? How am I going to feed these kids? You got to know that they're thinking that same thing too. And unless you remind them daily that their job is to just be a child, they're watching you, and now they're worried too. And then they take that to school. And then inside of that, they're sitting there struggling with that. And now what are we supposed to do with that? You have to meet their needs. If they're only being fed at school, don't shut the schools down for 2 years.
Right.
If they're only getting human contact at school, you need to help them find another program that's going to help that. But then here's the one thing that bothered me the most about, I think, the pandemic is that the consideration for the average child, and what do they call it? I don't know what the right term is anymore. I just call my kids average and superpowered. Like the one has superpowers.
Right? Neurodivergent. Is that what you're?
Neurodivergent, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you are. So I was like, okay. My thing is that they were impacted way more than the average student, and that was because their needs are being met. Some of them, most of them are at home, but the ones that they needed primarily were at school for a period of time, not for babysitting purposes, but so they can developmentally get together. And that was what was happening. Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Kristen. I just feel like I just had to say that because I'm like, I don't understand what's happening. And traumatic brain injury was another one. How many children are hit in the head, dropped as babies? Not a good idea. Or something happens and that traumatic brain injury stunts their ability to learn.
Yes. Well, and you brought up trauma. That's not even identified through special education. And at some point, that's it. If I had to make a prediction, that's going to be something that's going to have to be reevaluated, because mental health and trauma, there's research to support that children's brains don't look the same if they have been through trauma or are going through trauma. And there are more and more kids coming to us with trauma now, post-COVID, than ever before. I saw and heard things that I never can unsee or unhear from children. And I know that a lot of it had to do with them being at home and in seclusion, situations for so long, not having that social contact. Kids do not know how to be kids anymore. And we need to teach them how to be appropriate kids, because that's the other thing that happens. Kids left us at a certain age and they came back to us really at that same age mentally. They developmentally didn't improve in their social skills and other things. So it was common to walk into a 6th grade class and see kids rolling on the floor like you would in a 2nd grade classroom, because that's the last time they had been in school. That was acceptable behavior when they were in 2nd grade. It's scary.
Okay, so I wasn't sure how I was going to do this video, but you just gave me the ability to put it up.
Awesome.
So I'm going to, this is not a special needs situation, but this actually lends to the conversation. And so I'm going to go ahead and let's see if I can do it. We'll see, because every once in a while, all right. So I don't think that I'm going to play this and you tell me what you think.
Stop it. No, ma'am. So we're going to go to the timeout corner before I put milk in the cereal, because you asked for the cereal and then you got mad for some reason. You don't even know why. So, but you spit at me. It's not okay. You stay in the timeout corner. No. So what did you do wrong? You spit on me. Good job. What do you say? No, you say you're sorry. It's okay. Till you learn that you can't do that again, we're going to go today without Mickey Mouse, okay? At least this morning. We'll watch Mickey Mouse later today, but right now you can't have Mickey Mouse. I love you. Okay, I have a kiss? No? Okay, I respect that. Can I have a hug? Give me a hug. You cannot do that. I know you mad though, so I'm gonna make you kiss me. I love you. Yeah. I already miss you.
So the reason why I said that, a reason why I brought that video up was this. One, the child spit at the mom. I have not a clue why that child would do that. Why? Because again, when you put your children, keep in mind, we are away from our children 26 hours, 2,600 hours a year away from your children because we have to work. That means that the value systems that we start to put into them will start to be pulled out and place new ones in. So at home, this child did not spit. But at school, apparently others are spitting. So she picked up that bad habit. And I seen two things. She spit and she headbutt her mom. I don't know about that, right? But what I'm saying is that she took a different approach that was very similar to mine. We as parents need to be better at doing some of these things because, and the schools too, it's okay. It's not okay for our children to do those things, but we all have to participate and contribute in the improvement of that child. And in this situation, she was able to do it by the age of 2. By the age of 5, they're pretty much solidified. And so, whoa to anyone who gets what's happening. She said, we didn't see what happened. The child was trying to express herself to be heard. Yes. Christine, yes. Because I do believe that's what's happening. Children are not being listened to. And that means are ones with disabilities. And I don't think that they're disabled. I believe that what it is that they have a different way of learning that is not the majority. So some of them, I have autism. So not me personally, but I have an autistic child. And he just learned differently. That didn't make him too smart or too not so smart. It just made it different. So we had to approach things differently. And I feel like she did a really good job of approaching it differently. But schools participate in this. And this is what we're receiving for them not paying attention to Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Right. And in my opinion, everybody's guilty of it, parents and teachers and administrators. We don't take the time to teach these kids the correct behavior. We teach them to read and we teach them to write and we teach them math, but we discipline behavior. And that, to me, I've never have understood how we can hold a child accountable for something that we never taught them how to do. So,
yeah. And in that instance, as a mom, I wouldn't, like, the corner to me is just not the answer. I would see myself sitting and talking about my feelings, talking about her feelings, and maybe giving her some, room to speak and articulate. I don't know the child's capacity for that, but just giving them an opportunity to be heard. I don't think that's a time to push some away. I think this is a time to draw them nearer and explain to them, like physically explain, like, this is a loving, kind relationship. This is how mommies and daughters respond to each other. And just like you mentioned, demonstrating what's appropriate behavior and what's not appropriate behavior through my own demonstration.
I agree. I can see your point. However, for this, when you read the caption, and I'll send you the video. When you read the caption, she actually, this was the better option for her. What was happening was that she said that she was having to heal from a really bad place. So the corner is better for her because she used to spank the other two. And now she figured out that was not the appropriate thing to do. So she had chosen a different route. And I think that the corner works because I used to do it to my kids too. I did the corner. I would just tell them to go sit over there and please don't talk to me.
Everybody needs their break, their timeout. Yeah.
I need a break. I need a timeout. You need to sit over there. Don't talk to me. And when they would come to talk to me, I'd be like, no. This is for real. Go that way. And the reason why I did it was because I needed a moment. So I needed the ability to count to 10 I needed the ability to not to understand that that was a little body and not a big body, right? Another body that I would want to fight, you know, on the
Right.
streets. I would want to be fighting them. But that is a child. So you have to manage that. And so sometimes that corner may have just been for her protection at that point, because that becomes I need to distance you because like she literally tried to headbutt her. My son moused his sister and another student, and that knot was huge. Yes, please stand in the corner while I breathe through it, you know, type of thing. But so Kathy, she's funny. My cousin used to laugh in the corner the entire time. Yeah, that's why we were split up. That's why we were split up. I was like, no. Okay. Paul Mooney said it. We need to take heed. Listen to our children. They're talking to us, and we need to pay close attention. That is the one thing when I created my platform, that was the biggest thing. I would sit and watch. And so I did the research for all those coaches and people out there and administrators who say, well, did you really? And is that really something we need? Yes. I've sat on your campuses. I've sat in my car. I've sat in the stores, and I noticed something very consistent. Adults do not listen to children. They don't listen. There's a fire. Be quiet, Johnny.
Yeah.
There's a fire. Be quiet, Johnny. Hang on. We getting ready to burn up.
Right.
Be quiet, Johnny. Right. And then next thing you know, oh my gosh, there's a fire.
Johnny on fire. Right.
I'm confused. Why are we not doing this? Right. And so that's the problem. We need to start paying attention. You know, you would be surprised what's happening in that child's mind and what they have to say. It's not all gibberish. Some of it is, though. I ain't gonna lie. Some of it is.
Well, but you're right. You know, behavior is communication. And that's something I think we forget about a lot of times. That, you know, our kids are trying to tell us things through their actions. If they don't know the words, they're going to show us through what they, you know, however they can express themselves. So we need to help put words to what they're doing too. And, oh, you look like you're angry right now. Let's talk about what that looks like.
Yep. Hi, Dr. New. It's very good. It's very, very, very important. Hi, friends. Thank you for joining us today. So again, this is about advocacy and what we need to do and what we need to learn. First, we needed to understand the body in which we're working in. We're working with 7.3 million children in the United States, which is, equates to about 14%, 14.7% of the public school population. That is the pool we're working with. Inside of there's 13 categories that are well established as to what they are. I remember when we used to call it MR, or mentally retarded. That was very, very harsh, right? I was like, oh Lord, this is hard.
My original degree is called multi-handicapped. When you think about the language now, it's like, whoa.
Man, it was so. And as I was preparing for this today, I realized that some of the things that we used to do was what we understood at the time, right? But we needed to get to that plateau in order to understand, wait, there's a better way to doing it. Right. But the only way to get from point A to point Z is we have to follow the rest of the alphabet to get there. So don't be discouraged. I'm talking to myself now at this point. Don't be discouraged for the bad behaviors of others just because they do not see your vision. The bottom line is that they don't see it because they want to stay where they are because they feel safe, but it's not a good place to stay because the tidal wave is coming and all water is rising, even though it's going down, right? But we do need to be mindful of that. So I want to talk a little bit about the intellectual disability because it does seem as though that more like a 504. So it means significantly sub-average general intellectual functioning existing concurrently at the same time with deficits in adaptive behavior and manifested during the developmental period that adversely affects a child's educational performance. Now, I do a show called Breaking Through the Contradictions. You know why I do that show? Because we contribute to this through our contradictions. So you're a beautiful person inside and out, but then you turn around and tell them how ugly they are because they're not meeting these needs or doing these things or whatever like that. So it just doesn't equate sometimes. And so we really need to be mindful of how we're doing that. And some of it, and remember for a while there, dyslexia wasn't even considered.
Right.
And how many people are walking around dyslexic?
Well, and what happens in a lot of districts, because districts are not set up to be able to just have dyslexia specialists, they encompass it as a specific learning disability and just say, oh, well, we can supplement materials and do what we need to do within that. And a lot of times you can, but if you have true dyslexia, you need some specialized instruction. And a lot of special ed teachers receive no training like that. I can tell you, my background was more behavior and social emotional. So I never had any training for dyslexia or any of those programs that really helped kids with learning decoding issues and things like that. My expertise when I was academics was in the math area and supporting kids, with hands-on math programs and things like that. But it's just not available. And I think that's a big piece of it.
I figured one of the IEPs I just attended not too long ago was I remember them saying that he just needed a computer. He just needed a computer, and I was like, hey, he needs to learn how to write his name. I need paper to pencil. I mean paper and pencil. I need pencil in hand, paper. He needs to learn how to write his name. What are we gonna do? Put out a bunch 7.3 million children to write an X for their name?
Right.
Right.
Stop making it all technology. Technology is not the answer for all things. However,
and when it doesn't work, then what?
Mm-hmm. Right. I know, because AT&T taught us that we were heavily reliant on them.
I got a nice little credit from them on my account. I'll take it.
Right? Because I was sitting on the call and all of a sudden all of the things went out. And I was like, well, that's quite interesting. Did you know what? Right. Yeah. But so you're heavily reliant on technology, and we make them heavily reliant on technology. And to this day, we're like, they don't know what a rotary phone is. They don't even know what a phone is. We're going down I was like, with the one lady, she's like, have I reached that age? No, but it's like, I show the kids a phone because my grandparents, my older aunts and uncles still have phones, landlines. Here's phone, y'all. No, this is a press button, but it's not rotary, but it's still a phone. They can identify it.
Right. They know at least what it is and how to use it.
Yeah. My husband has a Mitsubishi, I think it's Mighty Mac or Mighty something, but it's so old that the windows, you roll them up and you roll them down. It doesn't run anymore, but for fun, our oldest, it's a boy, and he thought it was a toy because if you recall, that was a small truck. So they got in it, closed the doors, and he said, let the window down. And my son just stood at it. Like he didn't even think, because the handle, it stands out.
Right.
But he had no connection to this motion at all. So it didn't occur to him. If anything, he wanted to push the knob.
Right.
On the handle, as opposed to, doing this motion. Just no recollection. It's pretty funny.
Yeah, I find that very funny. That's hilarious. Okay, so I'm gonna read this last part, and then we're gonna go for solutions at this point. So more on adversely affects and educational performance. You may have noticed that the phrase adversely affects educational performance appears in most of the disability definitions. This does not mean, however, that a child must be failing in school to receive special education and related services. According to IDEA, states must make a free, appropriate public education available to any individual child with a disability who needs special education and related services, even if the child has not failed or been retained in a course or grade and is advancing from grade to grade. So the disability does not always have to show up, because they will find a way to to buffer, to
Mhm.
figure out how to get around, a low tech way to get to where they're going. But it doesn't mean that we should, that just because they're not failing, that the disability does not exist. There are a lot of people who had learned how to manage their dyslexia before anybody figured out that they were dyslexic, because no one was listening to the letters are moving on the paper, or wait, you said A, B, C, I see C, A, B, right?
Right.
So that wasn't, so one of the first things I want to say, I know today it just feels like a little off. If your child is struggling in school, your child has a right to an education, regardless of the disability. The other thing is, from the age of 3 to the age of 21. That is one thing that I think a lot of people do not know. Your student, just because they graduate 12th grade, does not mean that they have to leave school if they are in that category. So if they have a designator, some of them can stay in 21. And Kristen's going to tell us why. And
I was just going to say, and it's not at the end of, it's not when you turn 21, it's through your 21st to your 22nd birthday. So it's that full year of being 21. A lot of people think, oh, it's when I turn 21, I can't be in school anymore. So it's actually a full extra year. And, I think a lot of things that people forget is sometimes kids get there. Growth isn't always linear. And sometimes kids need more time to achieve and to get to, the same degree that, may take somebody 4 years, may take another child 6. And that, we need to provide for that.
And you have the right, and the law states you have the right. Your child has a right. Now, here we are with starting with the solutions. One, first of all, I'm gonna say it again. If you have a $27 million administrative building, if you are an administrator and is sitting in a state-of-the-art administrative building, our money was not meant for that. Our money was meant so that our Title I schools do not look like juvenile detention centers. And that includes the ability to send children with disabilities into a building that is safe and okay for them to learn in. I don't like or understand how it's okay to make everybody cushy at the top and everybody at the bottom has to suffer. No grass, no bushes, dark hallways, no bright walls, and then miserable, unhappy people. I'm gonna say,
right,
shame on you. That is unacceptable. That's not what our tax dollars are for. And I think that there needs to be a change that happens, period. Now, that being said, that $27 million administrative building can actually go towards paying for your child to have their education at a different district, because that school district that they are in may not have the services or the resources in order to support your child. But that does not mean that you have to come out of your pocket and do that. That means that if they cannot meet your needs, you need to tell them, if you can't meet the needs, you need to send me to another school that can. And then they are responsible, believe it or not, they are responsible for paying for that child to be educated in a different district. You do not have to do all this other crazy jumping through hoops. This is what you need to say. And if you need support, help around it, contact Kristen, contact Christine. And I have a plethora of a number of other people that you can reach out and contact. You do not have to do this alone. I had to do it alone, and it is miserable. It is a miserable ride, but I survived it, and I'm better for the experience. But I do not wish that on anyone. So I have people and community around me who is going to actually go ahead and support you in anything you're asking. So go ahead, Kristen, please share some of the ideas and the things that parents can do to help their children.
Absolutely. I think the first and foremost is getting involved and knowing what they're doing at school, not allowing for it to just be, oh, how was your day? Fine. Okay, let's move on. A lot of times I hear from parents and teachers, I don't have time for that. Well, you chose to have a career in education, or you chose to have a child. You need to make time for that, because that's part of what is, so critical. I think we have an overemphasis on academics and not enough attention being paid to those social emotional needs that kids have coming into the building. Kids can't learn if they don't know where their next meal's coming from. They're not available for that learning. I think I've moved from being an avid public education supporter all of my life. I went to public school. I taught in public school, to now actually saying, I understand why people are pulling their kids out. And it's not the teachers and the administrators' fault. Yes, there's some of that, it's not perfect everywhere, but a lot of times we need to be looking at that district level and at the policymakers for those districts. Special education here in my district just took a huge hit, and they're cutting 229 teaching positions. They already have openings. So I don't know how they can justify that they are turning around and cutting positions. But in that respect, being able to just stand up and speak up for your child. If anyone has any questions, feel free to contact me, in terms of how to talk with a teacher if you're having difficulty, or even just how to make sure your child's getting the best that they deserve at their school system.
Yeah, because I think that that's one of the things that I feel like a lot of people they don't understand where they're supposed to be and all of that. They don't know where to go. Like, Miranda, you talk about the fact that you had a couple of children that are older, but I guess it's your youngest that has a little bit of some challenges, right? So I know that before, were you having some challenges trying to figure out where to go and what you're supposed to do?
We took McCoy. She was in private school. She was in public school. She did charter school. Like, we tried everything. I noticed in the chat that someone's considering homeschooling. I homeschooled my two older kiddos who are now in college. And it was so painful to drop my youngest off at school. But I recognized early on that it was beyond my capacity to give her what she needed. And what she needed from me was a mom, not someone that was totally stressed out and exhausted and couldn't, couldn't cut some cookies and put on a pan and stick in the oven. Like, that's the least a mom should be able to do. But so that's when I became more of an advocate, sitting at that IEP table, like struggling with communication. And at one point she was having trouble with scissors, and her occupational therapist had a solution that was completely oblivious to her art teacher. And I was like, how are you guys exchanging this information right here, right now? And so that was my call to get more active. And that's what I want to encourage all parents to do. There's that mom who's considering homeschooling. I'm certainly a homeschool advocate, but also consider becoming a substitute teacher, or some other, maybe your school has some other type of program where you could come in and spend 4 or so hours just engaging with the teachers as well as with the students. That's also important too. As a substitute teacher, I remember one of the teachers next door handing me a thick stack of delinquent slips, like first thing in the morning.
Yes.
Like, I'm walking in, I'm happy, I'm excited, I'm greeting everyone. I get into the classroom and just kind of getting my bearings. I look at the whiteboard. What did the teacher leave for us to do? And, in comes the next door teacher. Hey, I'm next door. If you need any help, just let me know. Here, you're going to need these. And I just want to ask those of you who are teachers to be an encouragement to the substitute teachers, who definitely, I appreciate the offer. If you have trouble, I'm just right next door. Mm-hmm. But that's great. But the truancy slips, I think, is a bad idea. I think, gratitude. Hey, I'm glad you're here. I'm going to be out next week. Would you like to cover my class? Just having a relationship with your guest teachers. And that's another name that I prefer rather than substitute. Just having a relationship with your guest teachers so they can continue to be guests, so they can get to know the students, so they can, talk to another parent. It's like, hey, yeah, I substitute there. It's amazing. You should jump into the substitute pool. That's the community that Tabitha is talking about creating, that we need to participate in the creation of these communities inside and outside of the schools for their safety.
Right.
So absolutely, yes.
Yes, I think it's important. So again, let me remind you, parent 1 is home, parent 2 is at school. Your bonus parent is your community. If you want your child to thrive, not just survive, but thrive, I would strongly recommend or encourage them to actually get this community together and start co-parenting with the intention to make that child great, not just good, not just average, but great, regardless of abilities, right? Because a disability does not mean that we're supposed to lean into their weaknesses. It means we're supposed to find their strengths and explode that, and then allow their weaknesses to be the carry along, right? So that shouldn't be the first thing we recognize when you see a child walking in the door. So when my children come in, I always look at them and I say, hello. And that's if sometimes that's all we have to say, and my face will say the rest. I'm glad you're here, right? Mm-hmm. I love the fact that you're here. And I remind them, I love them and I care for them and I only want the best for them. So go ahead, use my thing. Teach your children to learn how to exercise the age they're in, but then at the same time, you help them to identify their strength and stop pointing out all of their weaknesses, because their disability does not define them. It's just an additional way that they learn. So if you can figure out that part, I think the rest of it will work itself out. If you're having trouble with your schools, if you need the extra support, you can always direct message me. Go ahead and connect with Kristen. And Miranda actually showed you that she's seen a gap in her school and decided to find a solution to help fill it. And when she showed it to her leadership, they were like, this has impact. That's what I encourage all of you to do in the future. If you're having problems with your child or at your school, please look out for that solution and find it. So here we go again. Here's my plug. I appreciate everybody who has come to spend the time with us today. Your hour is precious and important, and I am very grateful for you, right? Brandy, Phil, Sindal. I mean, there's some amazing people. Dr. Anu, Kathy, hey girl, hey. So it's very nice to see all of you. I'm very, very thankful for everyone. Christine, you dropped in just to see us. If you can do me a favor, please go ahead and scan that QR code and subscribe to the YouTube channel. All of everything that we've been doing for the last almost a year is up there and available for you to look at. So as I always say, wait, what is it? We're here to help you no matter what, but words are power. Please remember to use them wisely. Everyone have a great and glorious day. Thank you for your time today. We appreciate the support and look forward to you visiting us again next week. Same time, same place. Until then, words are power. Please remember to use them wisely. If you have an interest, like to be on our live show, please let us know and send us a direct message.